Wait a second before this thing starts. Welcome, everyone, to the Squid and Ultimate Elite Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Elite fan. Joining me as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, you've had a week to digest what the Leafs have done so far. Thoughts?
Uh, well, you know what? I like the one kid. I've done a little bit of research and talked to my buddy Fitzy, uh, who's with the Washington Capitals. I forget the kid's name that they signed. Uh, he's a young kid. He's about 24, 25, but apparently he's going to be a pretty good player. He plays with a little bite, has a little bit of decent hands, so he could be a guy that could fill in on that left side on that top line. So I liked what I heard from them. And these are people that work in the NHL. They know everybody in the league. They have to. They're scouts. They run minor league operations. They need to know these things. And he said he really likes this kid. So, you know, I got to take his advice.
Kane or Bunting?
No, Bunting, I believe it is.
Michael Bunting. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard Ricky talking spoke highly of him as well. He was from Arizona.
Yeah.
Now, it looks like him and Nick Ritchie have the inside track for starting spots in the top six, especially Ritchie if you go by pay scale. So, I mean, is he quick enough to keep up with Matthews and Marner?
No, I don't think he is anyway, personally. I mean, I think I would have him penciled in as a third line winger. I just don't think he's quick enough to keep up on either one of those first two lines, to be quite honest with you. That's just my personal opinion from watching him the last couple of years. I just don't know if he can play with those guys. Well, I shouldn't say he can't play with them. I think he's got the mindset, he's got the skill set to play with them. Does he have the wheels? I guess would be the biggest question.
Well, the big body's what they want to be banging and crashing. I mean, he's not going to replace Hyman with his speed and his tenacity, but his big body, he's not afraid to mix it up. He goes in net. He did score 15 goals last year, so it's not like he can't put the puck in net. He's always been able to score. So maybe playing with these guys, all he's got to do is get there. So it could be one of those things that it benefits both sides. So that could be a win in that case. There's Bunting, I know they're really high on. The other kid, Kane, I think they're really giving a good look at. This David Kempf, he could push Kerfoot out of the third center spot they're talking about, although Kerfoot could be moved up also. So there's lots of options they're being given. So they have a lot of options, lots of depth players. The plan outside of a trade.
Not a lot of experience, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say to you, is pretty much
that's my biggest concern.
Well, this is the same plan as last year.
Goaltending to defense to the forwards. You don't have that many guys that have had a lot of success in the National Hockey League on a team that won. So the experience is, I don't know. But then again, do you go the opposite way like they did last year with Thornton and the older guys, and so it's kind of you got to have a happy medium kind of.
No, well, I'm just saying to you, I mean, this was pretty much the same blueprint as last year to go for depth, like sign a pile up, but they sign 11 or 12 players. And you just got to hope the one or two work out. I mean, Galchenyuk is still sitting out there unless he signed today at some point, but I'd say he's out there and he's probably looking for a little more than at least paid him last year. He seemed to be a pretty good option. I wouldn't mind him on the left side of one of those guys, but here's where we're at.
Depends on the price tag. Depends on the price tag, Mike. I wouldn't give him. I wouldn't have him back for any more than $1 million.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I mean, $1 million or less.
Yeah.
And maybe load him up with some bonuses or something like that. But if he's still sitting there another couple of weeks, maybe he'll listen to an offer. But he's just one guy we're throwing out there. I mean, let's talk about these defense. That's one area I don't think people are addressing enough. I mean, a lot of the weight is being thrown on the shoulders of Travis Dermott, Rasmus Sandin, and Timothy Liljegren. I mean, Sandin pushed off the puck too easy. That's the word on him coming from scouts around the league. I have other guys telling me that they don't even think Liljegren is good enough to make it. We heard Dave Gagne, by the way. We'll give a little self-plug for our podcast this week. Had him on. He talks about Liljegren a little. But I look, Sandin, who could be a version at his best as ex New Jersey Devil Brian Rafalski. But that's a lot of weight to put on the pressure, like of these two kids, three kids, actually, if you want to look at it that
Well,
way.
it is a lot of weight to put on these kids, Mike. And but then look, they're a year older. They've got one more year experience under their belt. Can they make that next step? Can they go up 15, 20% their game
Mm-hmm.
by 20%? If they can, then all of a sudden, they're ready to play in the National League. They're ready to contribute. They're ready to, be one of the top six. Right now, the jury's still out, I think, on their entire defense as an entirety. And that means all of them. But um, it's well, we're just going to have to wait and see because they may have made great strides over the summer and come in and do a great job, and that's one of the things that we won't find out until October.
Well, the other part about this too is remember, Morgan Riley last year. Do you ride the year
Hmm.
hoping that they're going to try and keep him? I don't know how they can because they don't have any room. If he gets moved at the trade deadline, but how's that all going to work? Because the big factor in all this is one of your best defensemen, and Jake Muzzin. He's been susceptible to injuries the last couple of years, as we've seen. You got to try and keep him healthy as best they can. So there's some real challenges on that back end that I see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that 100%. I mean, like, I love Morgan Riley. I love TJ Brody. I love the way
No
both of them
question.
play. I love the way Muzzin plays. Um, the, the issue is not that they're not good defensemen, but they're not number one defensemen. They're not studs like Hedman and Weber in his
Yeah.
prime and guys like that. They don't have a guy like that. And, you know, can they sign Riley after this year? I'm not so sure they can because so they're you might see something big happen depending on how the season is going and everything. At the deadline, I mean, you could see Riley and maybe even another top player going for a real good defenseman and another forward or something. Who knows? Or a goalie. I don't know what's going to happen. But I just don't think that they can afford to pay him over $5 million a year for what he does on the ice. I don't believe. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, I love him as a defenseman. I'd have him on my team, but he's not a $6 or $7 million defenseman
Well, the problem you're going to
in
have
my mind.
is that I would think the move of that nature, as you're suggesting, would have to take place November. Thanksgiving US is usually around the 20-game mark for season, quarter
Hmm.
mark of the year, if you will. That's usually when you have a good understanding where your hockey club is, where you're really kind of going, and where some of your holes are. I
Hmm.
mean, if you wait to the trade deadline, you're playing with fire because teams that know you're desperate, they'll just wait you out. So this is where the mark of this is all
But
going to come to a head for Toronto. I'd say before Christmas at
yeah,
some point.
I think you're right, Mike. I think more so earlier rather than later. And Kyle has kind of been that type of GM as well. He makes
Mhm.
those deals a little bit earlier, like Berkey used to do.
Yep.
Didn't believe in waiting till the deadline, and I get it. But yeah, I think 20 games in, they'll have a pretty good idea where everybody is, where those young kids are in their game, and what they need to do moving forward. And then but right now, sitting out there, there's still a lot of pretty good free agent hockey players out there that aren't signed yet, which is kind of shocking to me.
Well, it
And
is.
I'm not talking about stars. I'm talking about guys that are meat and potato type guys that help you in the playoffs. Palmieri,
Mhm.
Zizekas,
Yep.
guys like that. There's a lot of those guys out there that I'm surprised haven't been snapped up yet. You
Well,
know.
at that time, I mean, I know Dubas has made notes that he's maybe not done yet. He's still got his eye on a few things out there, so he's not afraid to pull the trigger on players, and he does do his work from that standpoint. And then at some point in all of this, that the onus has to fall on the players. I mean, you can't blame management all the time. The players
You
have
know
to
what?
perform.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The coaches, the GM, the president, the entire organization can do all they want, but the players don't get it done. I mean, that's like you're right. That's the bottom line, Mike. It's up to the players, and they've done every possible thing they can, with the exception of moving a couple of the top four guys, which I don't know whether that'll ever happen or not.
Well, it doesn't look like that's in the
The
plans this
cap,
year. But at some point, you got to. The players have been all insulated, so at some point, they've got to step up and do it themselves. I mean, we can't keep blaming.
absolutely.
You can't be blaming management all the time. It's not. They're not putting the skates on.
No.
So everybody knows what's at stake. Everybody
Well,
knows what
I
they're
think
aware.
blaming management time is over.
It's over.
Blaming coaches is over. It's time that this core of players who've been together for 4 or 5 years now in the National Hockey League get the job done, and that's the bottom line.
Well, if you're watching new players, I know you guys all do. If you're just getting off the bike after a 45-minute ride, get back on, ride another 45 minutes. So, which brings us now to the next part of this. Peter Mrazek trade. I'm good with that move. Freddie wasn't working out. He started off good. It just couldn't get done for him. Maybe a change of scenery is good for both ends. And here's the thing. Campbell stepped up, showed he actually can play. He can play. It wasn't his fault they lost. If Mrazek takes the net for him, that's a good thing. And if Campbell continues to play the role he played in the past, even better for the Maple Leafs. If it doesn't work, better player comes along, better opportunity comes along. Listen, the cost to unload, everybody's talking about this 3-year contract he gave, but so what? He's making $3.8 million a year, a 2/3 buyout over 4 years. That's very manageable. If that was,
Peanuts.
and that I don't suspect that's going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. I mean, like.
Well, you know what? The way I look at that combination, Mike, is that Peter Mrazek's been kind of a tandem goalie for a number of years now. He hasn't really been the number one guy or the defined number two guy. It's kind of been by committee. And I think that's what we might see in Toronto with Campbell and him.
Why not?
Where, they might play, maybe one plays 35 and one plays 47. Who knows? But I think it'll be pretty close. Unless one guy just takes the net and wins and wins and wins, well, then that's when you say, okay, I got to run with this guy.
Well, look at pitchers now in baseball. When was the last time a complete game was thrown in baseball? If they go 5 innings now, they get bonuses.
5 innings. 5 innings is
5 innings.
And 5 innings is the key. I want 5 innings out of you because I got 18 guys down there in the bullpen.
Exactly right. Well, what I want to do is we want to take it a step further and see who the Leafs have to deal with now that we've got all the problems figured out for them. We want to see what they have to deal with to get to that playoff tournament. So let's start right at the top with the top banana Tampa. Back-to-back is a great way to enter the season. However, they've had a big lineup change themselves. They're shifting a lot of talent leaving, starting right with energetic center Tyler Johnson, who they moved to Chicago for an aging Brent Seabrook. But Tampa has a way of squeezing that last ounce of talent out of these guys. They got Zach Bogosian to replace Luke Shen and David Savard. They lost the third best line in basically playoff hockey this year, replacing him with the likes of Corey Perry. But again, with that core of Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, Hedman, and Vasilevsky in the barrel, how can you doubt them?
I don't think you can. Until they don't win the Stanley Cup, to me, they're still the favorites right now. Other than Colorado, perhaps, is another team that I would put up there with them. But and I say that because their goaltending and their defense are so good. I mean, it's unbelievable how good they are. And when that back end is that good and they move the puck to the forwards and get it up to the forwards quickly and move it out of their end or skate it out of their end, they're so dangerous. And trust me, Tampa probably has 2 or 3 guys that are playing in the minors that you're probably going to see in Tampa next year, along with those guys that played on the fourth line last year. Will be moved up, and they'll play a little bit more on the third line, and they weren't too shabby either.
No, and that's the thing. So, add in the wild card factor of John Cooper. We usually don't like to give coaches that much due, but in this case, back-to-back Stanley Cups, he's experienced the lows, the very lows, and the very highs in postseason play from Columbus to Montreal. You know what? His in-game instincts now are going to make up for any shortcomings anywhere else. In other words, they're going to be well prepared. And you know what? I think we better scratch off. There's 3 spots available in the division now because one is taken already.
I think so. And I mean, but then you get the Florida Panthers, who had a
Well, we're
fantastic
going to get
year
into
last
the
year, but
next week. We're going to save them for another week.
they
We're
lost.
just doing Tampa today.
But okay, we do one team, but then you got Florida, Boston,
And Boston, don't forget.
Ottawa's going to be better.
And
Ottawa's going to be better. Montreal's still going to be probably a little formidable. So
and Buffalo and Detroit, we can push to the side.
We can toss them aside. They're not getting in. They're done.
Except, they'll have a winning record against us now that we've said that.
Oh, no, please don't say that.
But we can't jinx them, so we take it all back. You guys are going to be in the playoffs, so we got to go the opposite way on all of this because you know how that'll come back to haunt us. Well, Skid, we're going to look at competing teams moving forward. The Leafs are going to have to go with to get into postseason. But in the meantime, maybe some of the newest Maple Leafs, if they're listening, can use this one. And here we go. Here's today's words of wisdom for you. It's not the load that brings you down. It's the way you carry it. The defensemen should think of that one. Some of the young guys. Let that one sink in. Now,
that is a very good one.
I thought you might like that one. Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for listening. We're going to be back next Wednesday. We're going to go once a week until the season gets going again, probably in spring training, in training camp starting in September. Spring training on our mind here with the Jays and everything in hot pursuit now of a playoff spot. Same time and same place. Don't forget to tune in this week's podcast featuring Dave Gagné. Terrific interview with him we just completed this afternoon. He did briefly play for the Maple Leafs. His greatest years were in Minnesota, though, but we'll listen to that one. Drops Friday afternoon. Have a listen. But until then, everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.